I am so excited because right now we have Marcy Browe with us, and she's going to help us learn how to combine image and personal brand so we can really captivate and attract the audience we'd like to online. After working in corporate, in marketing and sales, Marcy took her knowledge to blaze a new trail as an eco-conscious photographer extraordinaire. She remixes your brand and image with flair. She wants to unleash the brilliance of your brand because influence and image go hand in hand. You can position yourself to stick in people's minds and opportunities will flow that'll blow your mind. Welcome, Marcy Browe.
Michele, that was amazing.
I try. Well, how did you go from corporate to becoming a photographer?
Okay, yep. So I had a career in corporate. I worked in advertising and marketing for 15 years. I graduated with a degree in advertising. And then I had this hobby of photography that was brewing in the background. And my grandfather was a professional photographer. I have a lot of his cameras here behind me. Yeah, so that's how I got started. It was a hobby, and then really I truly was excited about blending my experience in marketing with the photography that I love doing. So that's how I became a branding photographer, because it's really about taking your message and your marketing and being intentional about how you want to put yourself out there.
So how do we use our brands to attract that ideal audience, whether we're moving forward in a career and, building a brand that lives beyond just whoever we work for, or in starting a business or growing a business?
Yes. Well, I think the word brand or personal brand, it feels like a buzzword because a lot of people are using it. And essentially, you don't have to be a big business to have a brand. That's why I like the concept of personal brand, because it really is about being intentional of how you want to put yourself out there. And what I like to say is that your personal brand, it's the promise of an experience. So what you do and say about yourself online or in person, you are going to help people understand the kind of person that you are going to be when you work with them. So it's the promise of an experience of what it's like when they sign up as your client or they hire you. So being intentional about your personal brand is really key. And we can get a little more into that, but essentially, a lot of times the question was, how do people determine their brand? Really, I have a process that I take people through.
Okay.
And I will end with that. That's my free gift to your audience of helping people determine their brand. But essentially it starts with just asking yourself really meaningful questions of, what do you believe in? Who are your idols? What do you stand for? What are people going to feel like when they work with you? Just getting really clear on what you have to offer and what you bring to the table.
That question about what will people feel like when they're going to work for you is really important in the work I do with helping people go on camera with confidence and to attract either their ideal audience or, future career vision. And that is because when we're speaking on camera, I know you're a photographer, so you're focusing on the images that are still. But on video, obviously, that's such an important thing because of the fact that emotionally, you have to stand in whatever that promise is. Like, let's say mine is confidence.
Yep.
How do people feel after working with me? They feel more confident, right?
Yep.
So then when I'm speaking about certain things on camera, like my solutions or a case study or myself having gone from freakouts to freedom on camera, I have to know when to bring that energy in. Do you find that knowing that transformation that you provide on an emotional level is key?
Yes, 100% it's key, because I think a lot of people get really caught in a sea of generic. So a lot of times people don't know what makes them stand out from someone who could be their competition. And I feel like once you're really clear on that value, so Michele, I know you are really clear with how you help people and the energy that you bring to the world. And I think it's really vital for us, especially women who are really role models for other women, to champion and to bring that right energy into the space, because you want to work with people that are aligned with you. So it's really important to be the person that you want to work with, that makes sense. Because if you know your values and you know where you're aligned, then you're going to attract the people that are also aligned and have the same values. And you don't necessarily want to work with people who don't hold the same values as you do. And I know that's really important to you, Michele, because you've shared that with me, and it's really true for me too. I really want to work with people that share my values. And I know that deep down inside, everybody does. And so that's the importance of letting people know what it's like when they're going to work with you, because then they're going to be attracted to that. They're going to opt in and say, oh, this is exactly the kind of person that I want to have in my life. And you're going to find that you have a whole list of clients or coworkers, or you have a job that really aligns with the values and the vision you have for your life.
And I really love the fact that you say you are a role model. Because when we think about this series, one of my goals is to really pull the women who are already leaders, whether they're at the top of their game in the corporate world, whether they're owning their own business, and making them see what is really possible, becoming the leaders that the world needs. I feel that women as leaders are really going to help us change the world. And I feel like almost that I'm doing my part here by pulling in the women who may not see themselves as world leaders or world stage or world class, and helping them understand that they are. How important is that, Marcy, in stepping forth and taking action in this world to express those values? Talk to me about that.
Yes, I'm so glad that you picked up on that, and that doesn't surprise me, just knowing a little bit about you. But that is incredibly important, because people that are next to you or coming up behind you, potentially, they're looking at you. You think about when you're in high school, and you look at the if you're a freshman or maybe a sophomore, and you look at the women that are seniors and you really look up to them. Those senior high school girls, they might not even know that the girls in classes behind them are looking up to them.
Probably don't.
They probably don't, but we are. And as people, as women particularly, that are putting ourselves out there, I think it's incredibly important to see yourself as a role model, because then you're going to act with integrity, and you are going to lead by example, and you're going to walk the walk and talk the talk, and you're not just going to give lip service, because you're actually going to do what you think is right. And that is something I've incorporated into my own business, because I did come from a corporate background, and I looked around and I saw, like, okay, there's not a lot of I had a really incredible corporate career, so I'm not putting the companies down that I worked for, but there wasn't a lot of heart-centeredness in a corporate career. So what's really important to me is environmentalism and really being sustainable and eco-friendly. So I knew from the very beginning, when I started my company, when I took my hobby and made it into a business, I knew from the very beginning that I was going to infuse my values of environmentalism into my company. So right from the very beginning, I set my company up to be green. So my business is a green business, and I'm certified green, but also I contribute and I give back to organizations that I feel like are doing amazing things to help us as citizens of the planet Earth to thrive. And that was really important to me. And I think that goes a long way to being a role model. So I know not only is that a role model for other women to really, really step into the heart-centered nature of how they can live their lives, but it also ties back into the brand, because I know specifically a lot of my clients have said to me, I chose you specifically because of your values and what you stand for, and I put that front and center on my website. So that, that ties into the brand. People are attracted to people that have the same values.
I bet you there are people who would even be getting on planes to work with you just because of the fact that you stand for that. And it's actually, we met at a conference. We met at Tamara Thompson's Broadcast Your Authority. And
Yep.
Tamara was on my very first summit ever. Oh my gosh.
She's awesome.
The people who said to me,
oh,
she's amazing. She said yes to me. She saw something in me when I just was first starting. Can you imagine? Those people who were on my first summit, I will love them all forever. They helped me get off the ground,
Yeah.
And so we met there, and I was like, I saw you speak at that event, and I flipped. I was like, wow, she's so smart. I'm going to get her. I got your guide and read your Branding Your Brilliance guide.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I saw your website and saw that you were green and that you were eco-conscious and that you were so dedicated to it that you put it front and center on that website, that's when I really flipped out and asked you to be on this series. So it really does pull people in when you stand for something. Now, what do people get wrong about their personal brand?
So a lot of times when I'm working with clients, they are either building something or launching a program or a product, and they come to me because they need photography that will work for their marketing. And a lot of times people get wrong. I ask them, who do you want to appeal to? And right away, if they say, I want to appeal to everybody, I know I got some work to do. Because you're not meant to appeal to everybody. Yes, that would be great, and you can do that, but I can't think of any influencer or celebrity or business icon that does appeal to everybody. And you don't have to be polarizing and intentionally, drive people away. But what you do need to do is be so clear on who you are trying to serve that you are okay if some people say, yeah, that's not for me. And I think so when people get it wrong, it's just that they're trying to please everybody. And especially as women, I know you have men and women in your audience, but I'm going to say this to the women. We do tend to be people pleasers. That's what we've been trained to do growing up. And it's definitely something I've been guilty of too, but I see it a lot with women, is that we want to please everybody. And I think that if you're okay to stand out and talk about what you stand for, then people are going to be attracted to that, and you don't have to appeal to everybody. So I definitely think that's what people get wrong with personal brand.
Wow. Okay. So let's say they've gotten everything right. What do we then do intentionally with those images? In my case, I'm teaching people about video to really attract that ideal audience. What do we do once we have the knowledge of what our brand is all about?
Sure. So once you have your personal branding images, it really depends on what your marketing strategy is. Some people really need to feed that social media beast, and some people want photos of them to fill up their social media feed, and other people want to maybe feature more of their clients or have inspirational quotes. And then some people want the photos for their website, or if they have a lead funnel that they're doing. So it really depends on what
media like this.
Exactly. Media for sure. And I will say, Michele, I know that you started your career as an actress, and
I did.
You have, and I know, and I've seen your website now. I have not seen your headshots from your acting, but I guarantee you that they're different than what you have on your website as an on-camera confidence coach.
Definitely.
It's a different audience. And so for someone like you that's that has a lot of different angles that they're working, and especially because you are getting a lot of media attention and you're putting yourself out there, that says a lot. So when somebody has really fresh, specific, memorable images, they can use them no matter what their marketing or their media strategy is. And I always start with the marketing/media strategy in mind. And I don't dovetail or shoehorn photos that might like just be a little generic into that strategy. I start with, okay, what's your strategy? What's important to you? What are you launching? Who do you want to reach? And then the photos are created based on that. So it's not like, oh, we just take cute photos and you look hot. Yeah, you're going to look hot. That's the fun part. But the photos are really going to be intentional.
Mm. So when you were working in corporate, tell me some of the top lessons you learned from these larger campaigns that you ended up bringing into your business in terms of marketing and sales. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I worked for the bulk of my career, 10 years. I worked for TV Guide, and so TV Guide is a company that anybody over the age of 50 will know what it is, but somebody younger might not know what TV Guide is, and so most people listening to this conversation will probably know or have an inkling about the TV Guide magazine. That was a small little Reader's Digest size magazine that you would get mailed to your house every week.
I remember it.
Yeah.
I'm old enough.
My grandparents had it in their house. Yeah. So TV Guide was a household name. And when I joined the company, they were rebranding because the magazine was going away because people were not getting their TV listings that way anymore. And the company was rebranding, and they were investing in a lot of companies so that they could become digital. And so now when you're looking for what's on TV, or if you're using a streaming app, that's all data that is delivered by TV Guide. So what I learned was so much about rebranding, because I was in the marketing and the branding team for TV Guide. We had to take this brand that existed that was kind of like your grandma TV Guide and really shift it so it was seen in the business to business space as a competitor for really. So what I learned through this process was how to transition a brand into something completely new and appeal to a completely new audience, but also maintaining the integrity and the legacy that TV Guide had. And I also worked for startups. So before I landed at TV Guide, I worked for a few startups in the .com era. And I was lucky enough to be living in Boston at that time. And
I worked at a .com too.
Yes, so you can picture it. It's the epitome of startup culture. So I learned how to bootstrap, and I really learned how to make something out of not a lot of resources. And I also learned how to adapt, because Michelle, if you worked for .com, that when you walk in the door one day, something could be radically different. There's not a lot of consistency, and you can't depend on things just staying the same. I think if you want that kind of consistency and comfort, you need to go work for the government and not be in startup or mode or anything like that.
One of the best and most fun things about being at the .com was it was just such a wild pioneer. Like, you had to get so much done with like maybe 25 people, you know what I mean? And they were going to take over the world. And so what was so fun was that one day I literally would be like the coordinator of the production. And then they'd be like, Jim has to go give a demo. Can you just take over? And then suddenly I would be doing things that producers only were supposed to do. And here I am all of a sudden leading, animation. I'm like, hey, I'm an actress. I can do this. Like, let me run the animation and direct the voiceover talent. And they were like, okay, because what choice do they have?
Right.
Zero choice.
Exactly.
It's either the people are coming, Bob has to go give the demo. He's gone. There's nobody else around who can handle it. And I know that I can because of my acting background. And I loved playing all these roles. And I was able to put on my resume, associate producer, and the fact that I was writing scripts and doing all this fun stuff. But I just love that about startups.
I did too. I really did. It just taught me so much, and how to be flexible and how to just adapt, because nothing was a given. Nothing stayed the same from day to day.
I know. So what is the science behind personal branding. You know, in my case, when I say personal brand, I'm thinking in the terms of my clients, a
Yep.
person, putting them on video, helping them know, okay, these are the values you stand for. This is the energy that you exude. You know, go around and ask people, 5 people, what one word would you use to describe me? You know, so I know that is really important, but there could be a science. What is the science part of it?
I do have a science. So I have a process that I take my clients through. And this is also something that I offer to people, even if they're not my clients. And I have a
The
formula.
one that you mentioned, the formula you mentioned earlier?
Yep. Yep. So the formula that I like to use, it's 3 V's. So vision, value, and your voice. And that equals your brand. And so what I like to take people through is, let's start with your vision, because I have a business coach who did this with me, and it seemed kind of not that, what's the word I'm looking for? When she said, okay, come up with a vision for your life and business, I'm like, okay, it didn't seem like it was going to be that impactful, but yet it is incredibly impactful, and I update it all the time. So you have to have a vision for where you want to go and who you want to be. How do you see yourself? And a lot of times the process I say to people is, I don't want to know like what you're doing or who you're working with right now, because you might be starting and you might be growing. So I want you to put yourself in maybe a year from now. And I think that makes it easier for people to answer that question. So think about the future you. What's the vision? And then your voice. What is your voice? How do you talk about yourself? What's the language that you use? And I do give a lot of prompts and suggestions so you can kind of come up with some of these words and some language. And then also your visuals. So your visuals are your images and your videos. So that all ties together to be your brand. And that's the formula that I use.
I am also wondering, this is the question I ask everybody. Why do women make such great leaders?
Ooh, I think women make great leaders because we're just naturally we're naturally leaders. So we're leaders in our households, and we are leaders amongst our tribe of friends. And I know that a lot of women might chafe a little bit if I say that we're natural mothers, but we're nurturers. And I do think that in order to be a good leader, you need to be nurturing. And I think what turns me off is when I see leaders that just lack empathy, because that's not a leader to me. You're not going to lead me. You're not going to inspire me whatsoever if you don't have any empathy. And I think women just naturally have empathy. And I think that women are also like us, these people that are just like, all right, whatever you throw my way, that's fine. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to be resourceful and figure out how to do this. And I do think women make natural leaders because of that. And I also think women complement men in leadership. And I'm definitely not about women only and women first. It's really also women, us too, because there's a natural balance to like male and female energy. And I think that we need to have more female energy at the table. And I appreciate you, Michele, because you are definitely a leader, and you lead with heart, and you have empathy, and your values are front and center. And I think that more people need to be like that.
Thank you, Marcy. Tell us about the gift that you have for our audience.
Okay, I love this. So I know that if you are watching along on Michele's platform, that you've been watching a lot of people talk about on-camera confidence and things like I'm talking about today with branding. So what I want to give your audience is what I call my brand planning guide. And you can use this even if you're not having a professional photo shoot at any time soon. You can use this brand planning guide, and I will make sure I include a link to this, but you can find it on my website. And it's called my brand planning guide, how to captivate and engage your ideal audience. And it's a list of questions and prompts for you. A little bit we talked about in this conversation, questions like, how do you want to be seen by your ideal client. Think about some of your idols and think about people that you admire and ask yourself, why do I admire them? What are the qualities that I really like about this person? And then I talk about this formula. And when it comes to your voice, sometimes people don't know how they want to talk about themselves. They might not be clear on what do they say when they maybe walk into a room and they meet someone that they haven't met before. Or if you're doing a video and you have to be on camera, what the heck do you say about yourself? How do you talk about yourself so it sounds authentic and it really gives that spark of what makes you unique? So this gift, I have some language in there that if you're stuck and you just don't know and you're not in a creative mood, you can use these prompts to really develop some language and just some really more clear vision of who you are and where you're going and how you can serve and be amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, Marcy, for
Thank
joining
you,
us.
Michele. I loved being with you and having this conversation. Thank you so much.
And for those out there who are watching, go forth with video confidence. Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you, Michele.